If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free at any point to dive into the chat, turn on your microphone, or email me if you need to know anything about that. When you guys are back to school next week, you will be absolutely digging into your final projects, although probably a few of you might still be working on a few things left over from before winter break. You're going to have to kind of multitask that and make some decisions. But we'll talk about that next week when you guys are back. This week is all about the extras. Now, I am a little disappointed when I said to you guys on Monday to do that survey to see if you guys were ready for remote learning. Only 45.8% of the class actually did the survey. That's not even half of you did the survey that I asked you guys to do. I sent you an email last week and I asked you guys on Monday, reminded you on Tuesday, and yet you didn't do it. So that's fine. You know what? It just means that what you want to do with this course is entirely up to you. And, you know, like, I'm not going to kill myself over this, right? So if you want the credit, you need to work with me and not just sort of give up at this point. You should never give up on this credit, right? This is an easy credit to get. It's not an easy course, but it's an easy credit to get. You just got to follow what I lay out for you. All right, so enough of that sort of rattling of my cage there. Let's get back to what we wanted to work on this week, which was something fun, which was the programming extras. So let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay, so if you missed what I've done this week in the programming extras, or you're unable to do it for whatever reason at home, or you were unable to keep up, then all you got to do is go to our Computer Science 20S page, the same page you've been going to all year, and go to examples, okay? That's been there all year. Once you get here to examples, scroll down to extra optional content, right? None of this is being put in for marks. This is optional content. What we finished yesterday was example 1. So if you want, you can click on this and it actually has a written description of what to do step by step. But if you just want to look at the code, here are the 3 pieces of code that we wrote. And if you click on those, you'll see here it is. Here's the code we wrote on Monday, where you learned about timers and the code that went into that. And then the code we did yesterday, which included the media player and how that can work, and you know how you can make sounds and stuff play. Here is that actual example. I'm just going to run it too so we can see it in action. Welcome to the media player. There's the actual media player where you can play sounds and videos, show and hide the player, turn the controls on and off. And then we can hit exit and it plays a sound and says goodbye. I actually realized after the fact, and it was one of my morning classes that pointed out to me, you guys actually probably didn't hear the sounds because of the way Teams works, but trust me, they worked, okay? All right, so what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna close this project because we're done with that first one, and I'm gonna create a new project for this, and I'm gonna, instead of just calling it like, you know, programming extras, I'm gonna call it what it is. We're gonna make a mini version of Pac-Man today, very mini, very, very small, just to get some of the sort of basics down, okay? So I'm gonna go next, mini Pac-Man. Caps lock. There we go, mini Pac-Man. Okie dokie. All right. In our last extras example, a lot of our work went into design. We spent most of our time doing design and actually very little time writing code. This example is the reverse of that. We're going to do a lot of work on code, very little on design. So let's start with the design itself. All you need for this is some picture boxes. Okay, so we're going to need picture boxes. That will represent the characters in the game of Mini Pac-Man. So we'll need one for Pac-Man, a picture box for Pac-Man, one for a dot, one for a wall, and one for a ghost. Now I know in real Pac-Man, there's lots of dots, lots of walls, and 4 ghosts. Bonus marks if you know the names of the 4 ghosts from the original Pac-Man game. No, I'm just kidding. No bonus marks. Anyways, so I'm going to draw a picture box on my design. There's one. And before I go and add the next one, I'm going to make a slight change to it. And then I can just copy and paste it. I'm going to just sort of make it a little more square. Okay? I'm going to square it off. And then I'm going to go to border style and just add a simple border to this, right? Just a simple border around it. That way I can see it. It's easier for me to see. Then I'm going to copy and paste this, okay, for each of the things I'm going to need. So I need 4 picture boxes. That's all our design is going to need, is 4 picture boxes. Okay. At that point, you can close your toolbox. You don't need it anymore. Okay. Now, if this was our actual final project and we were actually making Pac-Man, I would put actual pictures in the picture boxes to represent that, because that's, you know, if I had the time to do that in a final project. But this is mini Pac-Man. So instead of doing pictures, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the background color of the picture boxes to represent sort of those things. So one of them, I'm going to set the background color. I'm going to go to background color. I'm going to go to custom. I'm going to pick yellow for Pac-Man, right? So I'm going to pick a nice yellowy Pac-Man color. For this one, maybe I'll make this one of the walls. So I'll make it blue, okay? And for fun, let's get a reference here. Let's get a Pac-Man reference as an image so we can see sort of the traditional Pac-Man. Pac-Man is yellow, the walls are blue. The dots are kind of a yellow as well, but I'm going to make them white. And I'm going to make my ghost red. Okay, so let's go back. That'll be my wall. This will be my dot. So I'm going to make it white. I'm going to make my ghost red. And then I'm going to do one more background color, a background color of the form. And I'm going to make it like that traditional Pac-Man black. So my form is black. Okay. Now, if you don't like the border, you can get rid of the border, which I'm going to do now. I'm going to take the border of the picture boxes and set it back to none. So if you didn't do that, don't worry about it. So there we go. So at this point then, what I would suggest you do is, we don't going to spend a lot of time on this design, but I'm going to make my wall a little more rectangle shaped. I know you might be tempted to make lots of walls, but this is mini Pac-Man. This is more about the code than the design, okay? If you want to make it into your full Pac-Man, that would be something you'd want to do with like the game, like an actual final project. But for mini Pac-Man, I'm going to keep this really simple. I'm going to just have a wall, a Pac-Man, a dot, and I'm going to make my dot a lot smaller, right? More like an action. And I know dots are usually round, okay? But this is, again, mini Pac-Man. And my ghost sort of down here. Actually, maybe I'll put my ghost right here. So the idea is Pac-Man can't get through the wall. The wall acts as a barricade. If Pac-Man touches the ghost, it's game over. He loses. If Pac-Man touches the dot, he wins, right? Like the dot will disappear, meaning he ate the dot. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to just set up those simple things to represent Pac-Man with the possibility of me expanding on it if this was a final project. Okay. Now, a couple other properties. For the form itself, for this to run nicely, I'm going to set this form to run full screen, okay? So I'm going to go under Window State at the bottom of the form and run it maximized, so it's full screen. I'm going to also, under Form Border Style, instead of having a border, I'm going to just say none. Now I'm going to run this. I don't necessarily recommend, if you are able to follow along with me at home right now, that you do this, because it's going to be hard to get out of this, but it's going to run like this, right? Full screen Pac-Man, no border, and I can't exit it at this point. So I'm going to have to use like Alt-Tab to switch back to Visual Studio and hit stop. Okay, so under form border style none, okay, under background color, I went and changed a bunch of background colors, and under window state, I set it to maximized. There we go. The only thing I have left to do with my designer is name things. I am going to name things today. I'm going to name my picture box 1 Pick Pac-Man. This is important because we're going to be coding for this. Unlike yesterday's media player where we didn't bother naming a few things because, you know, we're just trying to get to things working. This, it will be important. So pick Pac-Man, pick wall, pick PIC for the picture box, pick wall. Actually, a thing you could do with the wall, if you are potentially thinking of this as moving forward, I would call it something like pick wall 1. Implying that you could have more than one. Actually, maybe I'll do that for this example. I'll call this one pick wall 1. Just like I'll call this one pick dot 1. So there'll be 1 dot. And in theory, I could have more and more and more and more. Pick ghost 1. Now I just heard the sound of someone trying to get into, uh-oh. So I'm going to call that one pick ghost 1. But, you know, again, if you were, if you knew Pac-Man really well, you might want to do something more like, you know, pick Inky and Blinky and all that stuff that, you know, you'd normally do if you knew the names of the ghosts. But there it is. So I'm not going to bother naming my form. I certainly could. But pick dot 1, pick ghost 1, pick wall 1, and pick Pac-Man. I don't need to say pick Pac-Man 1. There is only one Pac-Man, okay? Or Ms. Pac-Man if you'd prefer. All right, so there we go. The design for this is done. We will be doing no more design. However, there's one more thing we need to do with the properties window, okay? With the properties window, we're going to do something new. Something you haven't seen yet, something that goes beyond the core units of this course. In the properties window, I'm going to direct your attention to this little lightning bolt at the top of the properties window. The lightning bolt implies things that your form can do. Okay, unlike these things, the properties, what I want you to do is select form 1 and then click the lightning bolt. What you then want to do is scroll down to where it says key press, okay? And I want you to double click the words key press. This will take you to code, okay? We're not going to put the code in yet, okay? But I'm just going to put in a comment. By going to the form in the properties window, then clicking the lightning bolt at top of the properties window, pull down to key press. Also notice it's one word. I don't know if you noticed that. Key press is one word. There's no space. So it uses camel casing, what we've already learned in this course, right? So that's there. Scroll down to key press and double click. Get to this code. And what is this code? This code runs when the user presses a key. So we're used to writing programs up to this point where they had to click on buttons. They had to use their mouse. But with a game like this, I want to use the keyboard and I want to use the arrow keys to move my Pac-Man around. So this is going to be a new piece that we haven't seen before, right? Putting that comment in there, and I'll have that comment available for you guys to copy and paste if you want it. But that just kind of explains what we just did. By going to the form, the properties window, clicking the lightning bolt, and then scrolling down to key press, double clicking it, that's where we got to this code. Now there's one other thing we have to do on our design. And there's one other tool. I forgot about a tool. A tool we need, okay? It's not in the common controls though. It's not a common tool. Now, as you look from yesterday, if you were following along, in theory, we could add the media player, which would be kind of cool. We could maybe play Pac-Man sounds while this game is playing. We could even hide that media player so it could play the sounds, even though the user, doesn't need to see it to hear it. That would be, again, more along the lines of what you do with the final project. I'm not going to do that for this one. But what I need for this is a timer. I need another timer for this thing. So I'm going to put a timer on it. Remember, timers do not, sorry, Miss Denise. Excuse me. Timers do not appear on the form. They're invisible. What's important about a timer is just a few properties. Okay, there isn't a lot of properties to a timer. Jump back here. The properties of a timer. Oh, and by the way, to switch back to properties, don't click on the lightning bolt anymore. Is interval, which is measured in milliseconds, and enabled, whether or not the timer is running. So I'm not even going to bother naming this timer. I'll leave it called timer 1. I'm going to turn it to true. And really, that's all I need to do is just get the timer running, okay? If this was a real final project, maybe I'd have some things that the user has to choose first before I turn the timer on. This one timer is going to run the whole game, okay? I know in our other example that we were working on yesterday, we had multiple timers, and that's good too. But in this one, we're going to just use one timer to run the whole game. So this timer is enabled, and if you want, you can go ahead and just double click it. I'm just going to put a comment here for now. The timer that runs the game is all this timer does, right? This timer right here is going to run the game and then key press. Those are the only two places we're going to put code because we don't have any buttons or text boxes or anything like that. So the one timer runs all the logic of the game, and then when they press a key, things will change, right? So that's what's going to happen in this. So at this point, I do not need the Solution Explorer or the Properties window anymore. So I'm going to unpin them. So I can just focus on code now. Okay, taking a pause and a sip of water. So if you're able to follow along with this at home, great. And if not, but you would like to do this maybe next week. So you saw from the examples page, example 1 right here, which was the media player. Here's the code for example 2. We're not going to do multiple forms in this one. It's just going to be the one form. And in theory, all the code is already there for you if you needed it. Okay, so you can go down and get it. But again, these examples are designed to teach you this stuff. And again, I said this on Monday. As neat as it is to listen to me over Teams, as cool as it is to go and watch one of my YouTube videos, as exciting as it is to read a PDF document or a web page, as absolutely thrilling as those things are, reading PDFs and PowerPoints and watching YouTube videos, and as amazing as those are at teaching you how to program, I think there's one other thing you can do that's better. Programming isn't just knowledge, it's a process. So you best learn programming by actually doing it. So that's why I recommend with these examples that you actually do them, not just look at them. I mean, I could open a tab on the internet right now and find code, maybe even for the real Pac-Man game. Like I could just type in Pac-Man code. Chances are I could probably find some online, okay? Let's just see if this actually works. There There we go. There's some Pac-Man code in a more drag and drop, almost like the Scratch code we did at the beginning of this course, is some Pac-Man code. Let me go back a little bit further, okay? Here's creating a Pac-Man game in Java, a programming language I teach in Computer Science 30S. And look at that. There's some code right there. So, but will that teach you how to make Pac-Man by just reading that code? Maybe. But I think the most likely way you're going to learn to code is to actually do it, okay? And I also point this out as a bit, just a bit of a warning as we move into the final project. I know that you can probably go online and find code and go, look at my cool final project, Mr. Walks, and hand it in. A classic example, there's a C# project, looks like a snake game, that's been handed in multiple times by students over the years. It's not theirs, and I know that, okay? And that's like if you were writing an essay for your English teacher, it's not hard to find an essay on the internet. The internet is great for these things. That's plagiarism, and you will get a 0 on that. So I'm just going to say this now as a warning. I want you to learn. I mean, why did you take this course if you didn't want to learn, right? So you want to use this example. That's not cheating. Taking my code isn't cheating. I'm your teacher. I'm giving you this code. But if you go on the internet and find code and submit it like you wrote that code, that's not the same. Okay, enough of that. Enough of that negative. Let's get to the actual programming. So at this point, although we have our design available, really now for today and tomorrow, maybe even into Friday, we're just going to work on coding in Form 1 here. Whew, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to scroll up to the top to the area for global variables. Oh, this area, it's under the words public partial class. You learned this all the way back in Unit 3 of this course, so this is nothing new. There isn't anything new that you're going to see. You saw the one new thing, which was the lightning bolt. Timers wasn't really new because we saw that in the last 2 days. Oh yeah, you guys can't see the screen. Thank you. Thank you. I forgot there we go. So under public partial class, that's the area for global variables. And again, you guys know what global variables are. You've seen them before. All right, so let's get us started with this. All right, so global variables. We're going to start with some constants. Remember, constants are things that don't change. Okay, so the constants we're going to need. I'm going to put in a piece of code here that you don't need to do, but I'm going to put it in key press, okay? I'm just gonna put a message box code. Don't put this in because I'm gonna erase this in a minute. Message box dot show. A key was pressed. So I just want to show you this. If I run this program the way it is now, and I press a key was pressed. Notice how it responded to that action. However, any key works. So I can press escape. It doesn't matter which key it is. Any key will work, and this message box will show. Well, that's no good. How can I play a game where every key just does the same thing? So I need a way to distinguish between different keys. So instead of just a key was pressed, right here, I'm going to put which key it was. And to do that, I'm going to say E dot key. Is this right? Okay, so let me just try that. Yeah, that's gonna work. Okay, I think I just realized I made a slight mistake and I apologize. So we're gonna go back to design. We're gonna go back to the properties window. I was so excited to teach you guys this. I made a mistake. Under the lightning bolt, I went to key press, but that's actually key down that we want to use. Oh, what did I do? I just start this thing? What did I just do? Properties. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not key press. We're going to double click key down. Okay, my mistake. So I'm going to just switch this up a little bit. And I'll fix this. It's a good thing I haven't put this in the example yet. So it's down, double click this to get to this. Okay, because it's supposed to be E, this is how I knew, E dot key code. Yeah, key code was pressed. Okay, whew, sorry about that, guys. Let me just fix this. And that will cause an error, then I'm going to fix that error. Okay, all right, my apologies. I should edit that out of the video later. Okay, so let me just show you this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the key code. Now, everyone wondering, where does this little E come from? Where does E come from? Well, E actually comes from up here. So that's where it's coming from. Don't worry too much about that. That is something that's covered in a lot more detail in the 30S computer science course. But let's just see now what happens. I'm going to hit the space bar. So it says space key was pressed. Okay. Escape key was pressed. If I press the up arrow, up key was pressed, down key was pressed. Okay. So it's doing what I want it to do. It's kind of signaling which key it is that's happening there. Okay. And that's kind of important, right? Like to know which key is actually being pressed. But the code is one thing. There's another one called key value. I'm going to show you what the difference is with that one. So now I'm going to press the space bar. It says 32 key was pressed. Now I'm going to press the up arrow. 38 was pressed. Okay. So each key is actually numbered by the computer. It has a number for each one. So that's why I wanted to show you this in this little message box key, because this will help you make sense of what we're about to type for constants. Okay. So we're going to make a constant integer called the key to end this game. And it's going to be number 27. And by the way, number 27 is the escape key. Okay. So the escape key will mark the end of this game. So if you want to exit out of the game, you can press that. Okay. So I'll just, I'll show you that down here. I say if E dot key value equals the key to end this game, then application dot exit. So if they press, the value of the key they pressed is the number 32, sorry, 27, then I'll exit this. So I just want to show you what that just did, that little if statement. I'm hitting the space bar, I'm hitting the arrow keys, but if I hit escape, it ends. So now my code only works if they press the escape key. Okay. But in order to understand the code you just wrote, that I just wrote there, you would have, one, needed to understand what variables are. Two, understand what an if statement is. So this is why those units, those concept units, were more important before we got to these examples, because you need to understand them, right? All right, let's go back to our global variables. Let's make another constant integer. The key to move up. I'm going to use 38. Okay, just to make it interesting. This is the up key. But if you wanted to use W, because I know a lot of you like WASD, W would be number 87. 87 is the W key, okay? So I'm going to do all four directions, up, down, left, and right. Copy paste is going to make my life easier. Okay. And then down, I believe, is S, left I believe, is A, and right would be D. Okay? But these aren't the right numbers. Down is 40. That's the down key. Okay. The left key is 37. The right key is 39. You can see they're all close, right? 37, 38, 39, 40, right? So up, left, up, right, down, right? Like going around in a circle of those arrow keys, okay? End is 27, that's my escape key. If I was making a game where you had to like fire a bullet and I wanted that to be the space bar, I could do that too, right? I could figure out what those key codes are. And I can help you with this stuff if you're doing that for a final project. But in this example, that's what I'm going to do there. Oh, and by the way, if it was S, it's 83. If it's A, it's 65. And if it's D, it's 60. Okay. So those are in there for your references. Those are my constants. But I'm also going to add some more constants. It's going to be called move up. And it's just going to be number 1. Okay? These aren't anything to do with keys. What these are going to do is make my coding life easier in the future. Okay? In the future, when this game gets further along, we're going to have, if statements that say, well, if I'm moving up or if I'm moving down. But instead of saying if it's 1 or if it's 2 and I have to remember what 1 is, I'm going to use these constants to make my coding life easier. So I need all 4 directions again: up, down, left, right. Up, left. Okay. Now they can't all be 1 or it won't work. So I'm just going to make them 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to add one more for when something is stopped. And I'll make that one 0. Okay? So I'm going to make those 5 constants as well. Those are going to make my life easier moving along forward in this example. All right, how are we on time? 2:37. Okay, so we got a little over 10 minutes left. All right. Once again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you that time where I didn't have the screen share on, so you guys saw that, which is really handy. All right. Okay, so now that we've made a bunch of constants, now what we're going to make is some variables. Okay, specifically, these variables are going to be tracking movement. So we're going to need variables to track where everything is. So movement and where things are. Like, where is the wall? Where is the dot? And to do this, using geometry and the Cartesian plane. Y thing that you learn in math. But we're going to do it in a more, hopefully, natural way than math class. We're not going to use X and Y. And if you did looping problem 4, the rocket racing game, you've seen some of this already, right? We kind of did this a little bit in that rocket racing game. Or even in the second looping example, we kind of did this a little bit. All right, so first thing we're going to need is, I'm going to use the word coordinates. That's a good word. They use that word in not only geometry, but geography. When you say, what are your coordinates from your GPS? It says where on the earth you are, okay? This is going to be coordinates for Pac-Man, okay? So we're going to need an integer, Pac-Man, for where the top of Pac-Man is. And we don't know where he is right now, so I'm just going to set it to 0. I'm going to set all these variables to 0 for now. So Pac-Man is at position 0, the top of Pac-Man. But I'm also going to make another one for the bottom of Pac-Man. That way, if you think about it, Pac-Man is this square sitting on there. I now know exactly where the top of Pac-Man is and exactly where the bottom of him is. Wherever he is, I know where the top and bottom is. What else will I need to know? Well, I'll need to know where the left and right are. If I have all four of those, if I have the top and the bottom and the left and the right, then I know exactly where Pac-Man is on this particular place. If I just looked at just where the middle of Pac-Man is, I wouldn't know where the edges are, right? So in addition to top and bottom, I'm going to need left and right as well. Okay. But I'm going to also include two more. The width, test it, the height. These are really all the information I need to know about where Pac-Man is. Top, bottom, left, right, width, and height. Okay? Now, here's the deal. We're going to need these exact same 6 variables for our other stuff as well. So we're going to need it for the wall, the dot, for the ghost. And this shows you that if you're going to make a full Pac-Man, you're going to have to deal with a lot of variables. Now, there is another way to do this where you don't have so many variables, but that would require you to learn some content from Computer Science 30S, which I am open to showing you guys a little bit, or maybe not all of you, but some of you who want to get a little ahead or want to do something a little more advanced. But I'm not going to do that in today's demo. That's why we're doing a mini Pac-Man. All right, here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy those 6 variables. Actually, I'm going to copy them with the comment. Paste those 6 variables with the comment. I'm going to highlight what I just pasted and press Control H. So you might remember it was back a couple units ago. I showed you guys that Control H is this neat feature you can do to find and replace some code. So in this selection of code, make sure it says selection, I'm going to find the word Pac-Man and replace it with the word ghost. Actually, ghost 1. You'll notice it already previews it for me. It's going to preview that all the orange sort of areas, it will be replacing it. If this said the whole document, it's going to replace too much, right? I don't want to replace all that. Only in the selection. So I got to make sure I make a selection. Just in the selection. Let me do that again. Control H. Pac-Man will be replaced with Ghost 1. Now, other things I can do is match the case to make sure it's the same upper lowercase letters. Thing here matches the whole word. I don't want to do that because I want to replace it within the word. And then I can either replace the next one or replace them all. I'm going to replace them all. And there we go. That was how easy it was to make the next 6 variables. Guess what? I'm going to do it again. Control H. Replace Pac-Man with all 1. Replace them all. Paste it. H. Pac-Man with dot 1. Place them all. So if you learn about some of these little tricks, it can make your coding life a lot faster and a lot easier. So now I have the coordinates for Pac-Man, the coordinates for Ghost 1, Wall 1, and Dot 1, all done. All done that quickly, okay? So that's where that find and replace can be very, very handy, okay? Okay, pausing for a second, taking a sip of water. So now we're going to be spending a lot of time writing code in the timer, okay? We're not going to really see a lot of action here on this game until probably tomorrow. But I'm going to lay out what we're going to do in the timer as a comment here. We have to do things kind of in sequence. One, We have to get the coordinates. All 4 things. All 4 objects. Which are Pac-Man's. We need to get wall 1, dot 1, and ghost 1. All those things, we need to figure out their coordinates. In other words, where are they at this moment in time? Some of them are going to be moving, right? The wall and the dot aren't going to be moving, but the ghost maybe could be moving, and Pac-Man certainly could be moving. To make this simple, we're not going to move the ghost, but potentially it could be moving, okay? So the first thing we need to do is get the coordinates of all those things. Next, we're going to move some of the coordinates. Okay? Which ones are we going to move? Well, Pac-Man. Pac-Man's the one that's going to be moving, and potentially, doing in this mini version, the ghost as well. The ghost could be moving. Okay, it's not going to be, but potentially it could. Okay. So we get the coordinates, we move some of the coordinates, and that movement is based on the direction the user set when the user pressed a key. For example, we move Pac-Man coordinates up, and the user presses the up key. Okay. So if the user presses the up key, we're going to move some of those coordinates up. Okay. This is the big one. This is the big piece that we're going to be working on. This is the piece that, for those of you who are gamers, you've heard this word thrown out there before and you've never really thought about what it means. Collision detection. Okay, this is a big one. Okay. This needs a lot more analysis of what actually we're doing. Okay, but basically, let's just simplify it. Is Pac-Man, I'll put this in quotes, touching, which means he's colliding with, and there's several things Pac-Man could be touching. He could be touching the wall. Well, actually, let's start with the wall. Let's start with a dot. If he touches the dot, and we need a collision reaction. How do we react to touching the dot? Well, the dot disappears. Now, if this is a real game, we might actually add a point or something as well. Like, oh, they touched a dot, we'll give them a point. What about if they touch the ghost? The ghost, we'd make it a game over. Again, in a real game, maybe we take one life away and we restart the level where Pac-Man gets put back in his starting position. Or as the gamers like to say, we respawn Pac-Man, okay? What happens if Pac-Man touches the wall? That one is actually going to be the hardest one, okay? We stop Pac-Man at the wall. We don't let him go into the wall. We stop him right at the wall. So that one actually is going to be the toughest one. But that we're going to need to do. We're going to need to get the coordinates, move some of the coordinates, detect the collision, and then finally, what we do is we then redraw, okay, Pac-Man on the form in the new location. Get that from the coordinates. So Pac-Man's on there now, but we're going to be moving him. And the last thing we do is redraw him. Okay. And that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to stop our recording now because that's going to be it for today.